crappy old MTM M407 I gotta get rid of. Here's the wash bay, getting the rental cleaned up so that we can do our thing. So if you haven't watched the video where we toured the facility, the grand opening, this is the the Rupes Training Center, and looks like they've taken my advice and gotten some saber cabinets. I don't care. I'm gear agnostic. That's the whole point. So here's all the training products we're going to go through. Jason's going to take us through, hopefully throughout the next couple of days, through every single one of these products. I love the airlines. There's air everywhere.
Still building cyclos. Yeah, they're still selling. There's still lots of going out the door. Oh yeah. And that's just an order going out. You'd be surprised. I mean, it's still probably the most durable tool made. You can drop it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tank.
Still a lot of them with the carpet brushes attached, so people use them for scrubbing carpets and stuff.
Yeah.
They're still deployed as polishers, but they've kind of been latched onto by a lot of car washes as carpet scrubbing devices.
Right.
So here's the candy shop where all the marketing merch hangs out. My second office. Might have to see. These are very limited edition. You might be able to walk out with one of these.
Ooh, yeah.
We'll see. It's right here.
You guys definitely have marketing nailed. I'm assuming you have something to do with that.
That's right. Fully dedicated repair department. I don't know if you've seen, and we'll cover this when we go through kind of your commercial side of the training, but we do obviously warranty repair here, but then we do flat rate repair for anything that's out of warranty. It's $85 round trip. Shipping is included, and they rebuild the tool at both ends. The only part that isn't included is like the middle section where the rotor and stator is, because that's a bigger process. But if you drop your tool and the head cap cracks, or you rip your cord out or something, that's all included in the $85, and we even do new carbon brushes, new shroud, replace everything, even if it's on the edge of needing replacement, if it comes in for that $85. And so Troy in there, it's one of our assembly guys, but he works on every single tool personally, and we usually turn them in about a day. They come in and they're back out the next day. So.
Well, it's probably partly because most of them don't break, right?
Exactly, and it's nice to have the support as we need it. That's kind of the idea, right?
Rather than having to send it to Italy.
Exactly, a little bit of slower. There's Steve. You'll be working with him tomorrow. He's our manufacturing director, and he'll walk you through kind of the build process. You can see we're only kind of half using the warehouse right now, and that's because we only have to build 4 or 5 if you count the cyclo tools. But everything starts as a sub-assembly. All of the parts flow to the center racks.
What gets built here? We'll talk about this later, but
15 and 21 ES and Mark II and all cyclos. Okay. And that's the 15s and 21s are North American market only, obviously. So Italy still builds for the rest of the world, but we service anything North American 110 volt for those 4 tools. But yeah, everything flows from bulk parts on either side into these sub racks, goes into sub assemblies at the back of the line, and the sub assemblies work their way forward until they're a finished tool. You can see up here, every single tool gets run, gets turned on, gets pressure put on it, so we know when it leaves here it actually works. Then we check for noise, we check for vibration, all that kind of stuff. It's run through a high pot test, so it actually gets a surge to make sure it's electrically safe. Nobody's going to get electrocuted. But every single tool goes through that process. This isn't an assembly line. Everything is hand built. Everything gets hand tested, so the quality should be,
So did all are these all U.S. guys that you've trained, or are these?
All these are U.S. guys that have been trained. Jesus, who was upstairs, our engineer, is a transplant from Italy. They moved him here to oversee engineering. And then Steve has actually been over to Italy a few times and received the full factory training there. And then obviously the Italians have come here and validated our assembly process. So the tools that are built here are identical in quality and spec and everything to those that are built in Italy. Yeah, so in the future, with all that extra half of the warehouse there, we'll have room. We're going to be expanding more tools.
So like Duettos, Minis?
Yeah, it might be the Sanders next. It's hard to say. It kind of depends on what the market dictates. But now that these are up and running, we'll see what comes next. But it's definitely nice to have the space now that we can actually expand to do that. Because before we were in kind of tight confines for doing the amount of business we're doing. So room to grow.
Cool. Here's a receiver tank. Look at that thing. It's freaking awesome. Oh yeah, we'll look up. I think it's a 30 horse.
Big.
I think it's a 30 horse. Yeah, a rotary screw. Super quiet.
And there's another tank this same size off the academy. So it's basically a 2. There's a filler, and then it feeds into the one in the academy. So we've got basically a buffer of air supplied directly to the academy, and then this one supplies the warehouse separately.
Yeah.
So there's never, nobody's ever starved. And then we use this old Ingersoll ram to do 220 volt testing.
There's a dryer. I think that's a dryer. Oh yeah, that's an old tank right there.
Yeah, and this one is just to supply our
another
220 for testing cyclos for out of the country. Or
it's another 30 horse.
Yep.
And that's what we got.
Nice contrast though. I mean, you have this old monster. Looks borderline Soviet in construction versus the Gazer, which is so modern.
See, I wanted one of these so badly in my garage. Not a 30 horse, but like a little 5 horse. But the rotary screws, if you don't pull enough air from them, they rust.
Yeah.
And they cause all kinds of issues. So I had to go with.
I'm continually shocked at how quiet this thing is when it does finally kick on.
Oh yeah.
It's like whiskey quiet.
Well, you have so much air in here.
Yeah. No, it's an absolutely silly setup, but it's awesome.
3-inch lines everywhere. All right, so now we're talking the LHR19E, right? The rotary, and so give me the lowdown on this puppy.
Well, rotaries over the last several decades, rotary is like born out of the right angle grinder from the 1950s. It has not changed much since then. Colors, variable speed has been added, but it's pretty much a rotary is a rotary. But what we've introduced is some new technology here. First of all, it's very lightweight, it's balanced, does have a progressive trigger just like we showed you on the Melee system. So you literally can start at 0 and walk this tool, even that slow, which for rotary guys is a great benefit because the biggest risk is on the edges or on the peaks where there could be potential to burn through the paint. But if you can go at full speed in the middle section and then come over to this edge, and then just by releasing your finger, you can walk it over that peak and drop your RPMs dramatically. Do that spot, go back flat, and then pull up the speed again. So this is one of the features that personally, as a guy that's been rotary buffing for many years, I'm most excited about this progressive trigger.
So like the DeWalt, the Makitas, the old school, they don't have that?
They don't.
They just have like the little finger dial on the top, right? Yeah. And it's in a single trigger.
Right. But it's a new feature built into this tool that we really like. As you can see, you can really walk it slow.
Why don't they put that on the DAs?
How do you know it's not coming?
Okay, all right. Good. I didn't know if it wasn't possible on a DA because of the way the DA starts.
No, it's just the technology is caught up, and because you have to coordinate this progressive trigger to the speed module.
Okay.
So there's a lot of tuning and electronics to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a feedback loop that allows you to only pull this a little bit and get that much speed instead of the full amperage in the tool.
I do like the new big numbers, easy to get your thumb on, easy to get it into position. That's a
more robust speed dial.
Yeah.
Another feature is up here, and I apologize, I don't have them to show you because in the United States we're just now getting our rotary system over. But there's flexibility, just like compounds, there are preferences on handles and how you hold the tool. So this tool has the ability to have 3 different ways that you hold it. One is without a handle, where you just use this. Mm-hmm. The other is a side handle that screws into this spot. Mm-hmm. And a lot of rotary guys use side handle. The other is called a D handle, which goes from both points, and you hold this D ring, which is actually really good on the side of cars. I happen to like it a lot on the sides.
You can still maintain, proper pressures and things like that?
Absolutely. In fact, you have more control over pressure with the D handle.
Really?
Yeah. My personal preference is a D handle. But I wish I had those to show.
So those will be Rupes supplied. You'll be able to choose that. Does the machine come with it, or is it going to be optional?
Well, the kits does come with. I think we have a deluxe kit and a standard kit. The deluxe kit comes with one side handle.
Okay.
No, the standard kit comes with a side handle. The deluxe kit comes with both.
Okay.
Yeah, so the deluxe kit has more pieces to it.
Now, is this a prototype version? Is there a reason why this doesn't have the fancy big carbon fiber thing on top of it?
It is a prototype. This is tool number 4 ever in production. So
Okay, let me touch it. I want to touch it.
I do have number 1. That's actually, I have the number 1, serial number 1 for the Melee tool. And I also have serial number 1 for the rotary.
Those might disappear out of your office. Don't show me where they're at.
But yeah, because it doesn't have the finished head here, this is a prototype. Now what this means is it was bench made. It was not part of the production line. It was literally handmade on a bench. So until we get all of our inventory, we don't have production tools.
Gotcha.
There is the chart that tells you on what speed setting, what the actual RPMs would be of the motor. 3 different diameters. The ones we're using today is the smaller of the 3. There's 5, and then there's 6, and then there's 7-inch.
Oh, okay, yeah, I noticed that in the catalog. Yeah, I forgot there were three different sizes, all for one machine. They won't do. You wouldn't put a 3-inch backing plate on this, would you? Could you?
You could, because the thing about rotaries, you don't have to worry about that whole counterbalance thing going on. So you can downsize. What you can't do is upsize. So if this tool is made for 7-inch diameter, you don't want to go 8-inch or 9-inch or 10-inch.
Now, why doesn't this have all the holes and stuff that they normally have? Is just because of how it mounts?
Yeah, with rotary, the engagement is really important. So you want maximum engagement because there's a lot of rotational forces. And if you had holes in here and holes in the pad, it reduces engagement. So you actually, there's a risk of a pad flying off. So you want really solid engagement. Does this hole
go through? Yeah, it still goes through. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So we have here a system approach like the other systems. So this is the rotary compound, which is blue in color, which is consistent with the Rupes system. A blue foam pad, we've got a blue wool pad.
But that blue foam pad is way different than the blue, than the blue pad. It's the DA system's got, it looks like a sponge, like a ocean sponge almost. Yeah, this is considerably different.
So with this rotary pad, you'll notice the design, the shape of the pad is actually different. The foam itself is different, and that's purposeful. There's a reason for it. This is about surface area. So this porosity and the stiffness, everything has been tuned for a rotary movement. And even that shape. So this rounded edge, if it was a sharp edge like some of our other pads have, because the pad velocity is more on the outside of a rotary compared to the inside. Do you have any videos that explain that part to people? No? So as a disc is spinning around, the pad velocity is actually higher on the outside compared to the middle.
Simple physics, right?
Yeah, it's things that are round spinning around. And, but I'll show you something that I don't want you kids to try at home. So you can actually take this rotary movement and you can put your finger in the middle and you can actually leave it there a while. And it'll get warm eventually. But if you take your same finger and put it on the outside, you would not want to leave it there very long because it will get hot very fast. So more pad velocity on the outside compared to the inside. And by the way, if you want to nerd out on this kind of a system has that propensity to leave a rotary swirl mark. And what I just explained is one of the main reasons why that is. Because you have parts of this pad working against other parts of a pad. Pad velocity strong here, light here. So you put this to paint, high velocity on the outside, low velocity on the inside, and that's one of your contributors to a swirl mark.
When you get those halos that,
Yeah.
You've seen them where they're nice, and you can see when a guy has real smooth movements when you see the smooth halos everywhere.
You can see a pattern to their...
Right. They do the whole darn car like that,
So again, I would recommend if you're new to rotary and you want to master this kind of a tool, start with smaller pad diameters, and you can eventually work your way up to larger pad diameters. But this blue liquid is different than the other blue compound in Melee. It's different than the blue one in the random orbital system. So this compound and this polish has been made for rotary movement. And it also happens to be the strongest cut out of the three. Because when somebody picks up a rotary, chances are they want to be more aggressive. They want to remove a sanding mark, or they want to remove more heavy defects. Otherwise, if you had just mild defects and you just wanted to polish and wax a car, there's no reason to pick up this tool, because this would be way overkill for that. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about foam versus wool, and obviously the wool pads aren't here yet; they're in prototype, or they're still manufacturing them. But I mean, that's a cutting foam pad, right?
Yes.
Wool would be more aggressive than that, just like on the force rotation, right?
Right. And we as a company, we do not recommend microfiber for a rotary movement.
Why is that?
Microfiber is a very tiny filament, and when you put it in this movement, if you can imagine these hairs sticking up like this, every rotation, the filament's going to lay down, and it's going to lay down in a rotary pattern. So imagine going over and over and over and over and over the same spot.
Yeah.
With an aggressive microfiber.
Think about like fishing line, like going
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Huh. Yeah.
So over and over and over and over in the same exact spot with a microfiber, you're going to get a very, very fine, it's not a wide scratch, but a very deep.
Unlike a DA where it's flopping around all over the place,
Yeah.
right? It's switching direction. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Exactly. So the swirl mark that is left from a rotary using a microfiber disc is not acceptable to us. And there isn't any amount of formulating that you can go around that, because it's just gonna gouge. It's also, by the way, gonna ramp up surface temperature really fast.
Yeah, because microfiber inherently is really grabby, right? I mean, it's supposed to grab on and
so we
cut.
simply don't recommend it. The wool pad, it flies around and it's an irregular shaped
Plus, it does better with
filament.
heat.
Yeah, and it dissipates heat.
Yeah.
So although you do get that swirl mark pattern with a wool pad, it's not as deep as it would be with a microfiber.
So show me how do you use this? I don't even know where to start.
So this is where priming can seem really weird to somebody who isn't familiar with this. So if I did the 4 pea-sized dots like we primed,
fling it against the wall.
I would fling it. Yeah, you would turn this on, it would instantly throw product. So we have to think of some way to get the product on the pad and to stay on the pad without throwing it across the room. So the way that's been developed is you do a straight line of product like that on the surface, not on the pad. Because anything on the pad, it's going to take whatever's on the outside of this and it's going to throw it. So this rotation will always go that direction. It won't go the other way. So if you take this as a clock face and you look at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock as your entry point. So you're going to put this on the lowest setting. I'm going to tilt it on edge, pull the trigger, and then pull it across this bead of product. And as I do that, if I happen to pull it across right there and there, a 10 and 2.
So how fearful do I need to be of using the rotary on, say, this 2017 Nissan? Like, shouldn't I be scared that I'm going to blow through the paint?
You should have a healthy respect for this rotary tool, because you could blow through the paint. And even for the best of us that have been polishing for 30 years, we still burn paint. Some people relate that experience of burning through paint as, oh, you did something wrong. Your technique was wrong, or you had the wrong pad, or you too aggressive compound. The reality is that burn through in most cases happens because of the detailer that was on the car before you. Because paint has a thickness, and every time that you remove defects, you are removing paint thickness. And the more that car gets buffed, the thinner and thinner the paint gets. So this edge could look beautiful right now. You can come at it with one fast pass like that, and boom, burn through. And was it your fault? Yeah, you burned through, but it was the 3 detailers before you that thinned out this edge.
Yeah.
And now you're the guy that burned through. Most of the time, that's the case. But to minimize the risk, there's a technique to address that edge. So you want to take this polisher, polish up to this edge, but not over it. Polish this direction up to the edge, but not over it. If you can do that, you can polish very, very close. You can see the residue is getting very close to that, right? So you polish out the defects here, and then you come at it from the other direction. See how close I'm getting to that edge?
Yep.
But I'm not on it.
Well, how do you get the edge with a different tool?
Well, ideally, you would do your edge work with an edge work type tool. And
Yeah.
we have a session on that we're going to talk about. The nano would be great for this area because anytime you downsize diameter, it becomes less aggressive in a rotary setting. So I can do this with the nano and not have that much risk. That ideally is the best way to do edge work, is downsize the tool, downsize the pad. But if I had to, or I chose to do this whole car with this tool and this pad, the way I would do it is just what I showed you here. Get all your defects out on this side of that peak. Get all your defects out on that side of that peak. And then have a remaining fast pass over, you do fast arm speed, over this edge. And then you can pull those defects that are right on the peak. And you'll notice I tilted the pad. Your camera angle can't see that, but I tilted the pad. I was not flat on this peak. I tilted it, and there's a reason for that. This will always go that direction. So what that tilt does, if I tilt it this way, my rotation is going off in this direction. My rotation is going off the edge. If I tilted the other angle,
It's going into it, yeah.
my turns are going into that edge, and my heat and friction will be much higher this way. And this is how burns happen. So people they do the whole car on edge like this, because that's how they learn. And they even hit the edge, and boom, all my force from this rotation is going right into that peak. But if I have it rolling off the peak, my heat and friction is a lot less. And that you can do a lot of edge work this way and not burn. I can do all these. See, I'm rolling off that edge. And all it is this little bit of tilt. So just something to learn about angle. Angle can be your friend with this type tool. But that's how I would do it.
I think with all the technology we have, I mean, I'd be inclined to use the rotary in a high defect flat area, and then come back. We have all these other tools. Why would I try to force it? Am I thinking about this right? I mean, am I an idiot? Or, I mean,
no.
What would be the point of me forcing it with that?
I definitely I wouldn't call you an idiot, especially not on camera.
But
no,
I mean,
if you have all the tools at your disposal, then this might blow your mind, but I would definitely hit this with rotary. If I had all the Rupes assortment of tools, I would do the nano 1-inch pad rotary setting on all of this edge work. And the reason is because I have the most control. There's no offset. There's no orbit. So I have a lot of precision. I can move that pad right up to the edge. And there's no offset. So rotary nano would be the way I would do all this edge work. I would do random orbital, 15 millimeter, random DA orbital on everything, unless if I wanted to hammer defects, like I'm in a hurry or I had to, for whatever reason, mow down defects, then I would pick up this tool and just do that. But the finishing steps would be with a random orbital.
So show me a little section here of how you use this thing. Here at what, 600 RPMs, 400 RPMs?
450. So I could crease this up. See, this is not a flat panel.
Yeah.
It's got a concave here. So the more curves and contours, the less RPM speed I would do. I actually turn this RPM dial down or use the progressive trigger. But if I'm flat, wide open spaces, we can handle that RPM a lot better. So here I would tilt the tool up so that I'm rolling off of the edge.
That would take me a while to get my brain to adapt to which way was which.
Yeah, you have to remember where the direction is. So another reason I like slow RPMs with a rotary is that I have this more control, I have more confidence, and I can actually slow down my arm speed. Because if it's spinning around so fast, the tendency is I gotta move fast. Because the concern is if I leave it in one place, I'm gonna burn through. So I actually like slower RPM, slow down, get more rotations on there. And as you can see, we're getting all these defects out in just a couple of passes.
Are you a look through the polish kind of guy as you're polishing?
I am. That's why I like to short cycle. The short cycle products you can tend to see through and see what's going on. So you can see we have a lot of scratch removal. There's still some there, but you can also see that hologram that, I don't know if your camera can pick it up.
Yep, we can see it. So you're guaranteeing another step.
Yeah, there's going to be another step. Now I could hit this with random orbital. There is one technique I can show you with rotary to minimize that. So we're going to switch to another pad and another product. This is a less aggressive polish. There's a technique I can show you that can minimize this swirl mark. Well, the product has been downsized, so we have less aggressive polish, less aggressive foam. But I'm going to show you a technique for removing swirl marks that you can do with a rotary. So we'll prime this. This looks like it primed pretty fast. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is change my technique. And I'm going to go light pressure, fast arm speed. You'll see what that looks like. And then whatever you do, don't overcycle this. You want to short cycle it no more than 3 or 4 passes. Because if you overcycle it, you can put another swirl mark back in, right? So this is a technique specifically for minimizing swirl marks with a rotary. And you saw, did the camera pick up the swirl marks before?
Yeah, I think so.
But what I can see it from my angle, there was a lot of hologram right here, and now it's not there. There's other scratches here still. But
so that's rotor. I mean, what you just did there, I mean, is the timing, how much time?
It's short cycling, fast arm speed, light pressure. That will minimize a swirl mark. Now that's not a technique that's good for going after scratches and stuff. You want to slow down your arm speed, put some pressure down. That will remove scratches.
Yeah, my brain's hurting right now. I mean, rotary.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. That's why in the classroom we said the learning curve is measured in months. It really is.
Yeah.
I can get you to master this today on this flat spot.
Right.
And then you'd have trouble down here and over here and right here. It literally takes practice and weeks and months to figure it out. Which is why we lead in with our random orbital system. If somebody can figure out that learning curve, they're going to get the best results the fastest.
All right, so let's have me do a little section with the rotary here and see if I can make it work.
Okay.
So, I mean, that darn blue pad seems like, what's the point? I guess to get the scratches out.
Yeah, you need
I mean,
this,
even just that little touching it is it's hazed up crazy.
swirl like crazy.
Yeah. So what do I need that thing for? I guess I don't.
Well, it depends on your target customer, because there are body shops that are removing sanding marks, which is a lot different defect than these car wash scratches.
Right.
So they're
I'm just talking about me. I mean, everything I'm doing is leading with me. What do I want? What would I want for me? And then by proxy, if I want it or if I need it, then other people. It's not even needed. Is it does it? One, do I enjoy doing it? And then secondly, is it something that makes sense?
I would say I don't think you do, because if you've mastered the dual action random orbital and you're getting good results.
But let's say I sand it out again. Let's say I sanded out a little scratch. There's a little scratch here, and I did a little spot sanding with say 3,000 grit.
Yeah.
What do I need that for? I just grab a DA and knock it out in a second.
Right.
Let's say I did 1,500 grit. I was getting crazy, and I did 1,500 grit on a huge spot.
Yeah.
I'd grab a DA.
Well, and that's you personally, but there are a lot of users that have different purposes for polishing.
Well, and that's my question. Am I only grabbing a DA because that's what I know? Would I be better off grabbing a rotary?
I would say no. Because the efficiency of the dual action random orbital is there. It's a reality.
So the biggest advantage is, let's say this was I just bought, this is like my dream car, I bought it used, and this is what it looked like.
Yeah.
And I only had, 15 hours to get the thing dialed in, with trim, everything. And I'm going to grab a rotary, and but chances are, if you don't do it all the time, you're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, if you're not aware and not accustomed to that movement, you could damage your paint, and that's the baggage that goes along with picking that thing up. But that's your scenario. Now, there's other scenarios where rotary is the top choice. It's the top tool to use. In your case, that's not the case. I don't think.
So, what is that case?
Body shop, full panel sanding. Like if they're doing, they're starting with 1,000 grit, 1,200 grit, 1,500, 2,000.
And they're working with 500 microns of paint. We're dealing with 110, 130, Yeah.
And they also have the advantage, I shouldn't say the advantage, but the reality in body shops, collision repair, they are buffing on panels that are off the car in many cases. So the edge work issues that challenge us with the large orbit polisher, they don't have that issue because this hood is off the car. So they can maneuver around panels a lot easier than if that same panel was on the car. So
let's say my GT3, my previous GT3, they jacked up the rear, when they were taking the tail light out, they scratched it, and so they had to repaint the rear. And when I got it back, the orange peel didn't match the rest of the orange peel.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, it's already been repainted, so why don't I mess with this thing on my GT3? So I sanded it a little bit, just for sanding first foray. Wouldn't it have been easier to then, again, I would just grab the DA and get the done sanding marks
The
out.
difference is that you know the DA, you know how to use it, you know how to get results. And if that is the case, then I don't think there's a reason to step up to that rotary.
But see, there wasn't always the case, because when we had 8mm DAs, you couldn't do as much with it.
Right. The large orbit really bought us some more.
We didn't have great microfiber cutting pads. We didn't have fantastic foams. You had like an orange foam pad.
Well, and the technology and compounds have really advanced. So all that together means you can do stuff with a DA orbital that you would dream about doing 20 years ago.
So why do I want this thing? Like I want it, but I don't want to use it. Is it just because I want to hang it on the wall?
Because you like tools.
Yeah, let me see this thing. All right, so if I'm going to polish out like this area here, I'm probably never going to finish with this, right?
You can, but you're going to be asking for a slight hologram, you know. It would be better to finish with a dual action orbital.
Right.
I can show you how to finish with that. If that's the only tool you went out into the world with, I can show you how to get good results.
But I think the conclusion we're coming to is it's not the only tool in the world, so why in the world would we try to make it the only tool in the world? I'm struggling to figure out when I would actually even want it.
And you may not, because I don't think you're in that environment. Another good use of that tool.
Well, let's not even say me. Let's say a better me. Let's say the best me. What does the best me do with this?
Okay, let's think of this scenario. You have a aged motorhome, an RV, that has oxidized gel coat. That's all that cakey, white, pasty. You know, you wipe it and the oxidation just wipes right off.
Okay, that's not a bad. That's like a worse me. Okay, so that's out. Let's see.
But that scenario, you would pick up a rotary, mow down that oxidation, and then finish with an orbital. And that will be more efficient and better than if you tried to hit that whole thing with an orbital.
Because I could come and do this whole area, and
you'll cut right through that oxidation really fast. And orbital will struggle cutting through that much oxidation on a gel coat finish. So that's one scenario. The other is edge work is the other time that I would use rotary for sure. Boats, RVs, oxidized surfaces, rotary tends to cut through that stuff a lot more efficiently. But for a car enthusiast or a detail enthusiast like yourself, and you've already optimized your abilities with a Bigfoot random orbital, as a rep of the company, I would not be recommending that tool for you. Because you've already got our best. So you've already got our best foot forward.
I still want one to hang on the wall. I'm probably just not going to use it. All right, so let me try this. All right, so we're going to do a little, grab a bead, right? Now we're definitely going to fling it all over the place. Between 10 and 2.
Yep.
But it spins this way. Even tells me right here, right?
Which means you want to go from your right to your left. You do not want to go from your left to right. Because what would happen if you did?
Yeah, it's going to shoot it that way, right?
Go all over Mike over there.
And hit my camera.
And then be on your camera lens.
Right.
I'm behind you all the way. Oh, that was good. That was very good.
So now this edge here, I would lift up this way?
Yes.
Man, this thing grabs like crazy. Am I going too fast?
No.
Holy moly, I could see why you don't need to make a lot of passes on this thing.
Yeah.
Like I can just feel it
You feel it biting into the paint.
Yeah.
And this pattern actually is very good. I hope your camera can pick that up because this is the actual pattern of the swirl mark that will be left on the paint.
Yeah.
You'll actually see this. This is the edge of your pad right here. And that's where the most velocity is. And that's where the swirl mark is.
And so the technique for minimizing that is to less pressure.
So put the pad flat, fast pass, less pressure. Even faster than that. You're at an angle right now.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera. And just get up in it.
There you go, that's flat. You're still at an angle. Look at your footprint. There you go. You see that footprint?
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for. Fast, even faster than that. And then up and down this way.
Oh yeah, I'm screwed with this thing.
And
I
that's
have a hard enough time keeping the darn DA flat. I finally figured out how to get my, I always want to pull from here. So I see what Dylan was talking about in the classroom about having to, all right, here, get this thing out of here.
You steer the tool here, actually.
I don't want any of that thing.
Well, that's good. See, you've minimized your swirl mark a lot.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
That actually was a very good rotary application as rotaries go.
Well, once I got it flat, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to, for whatever reason, brain to hand, I don't have I feel like it's flat, but it's like, it's up.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at it and it's,
Yeah.
And then I go back and I watch it on camera. I'm like, you idiot, the thing is at a 30-degree angle.
So there's still a very slight hologram you can see.
Yeah.
You see those?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Very short cycle, because you don't want to overcycle this. If you overcycle it, you'll put a swirl in while you're trying to take one out.
The paint residue will then...
So how does that look? Did we get it?
I think so.
There's one up here.
Yeah, we didn't go up there.
But you can see, I mean, you can minimize swirl mark with a technique adjustment. But it removed all the major scratches. You've got one big one right here, one big defect right there.
Mm-hmm.
But all of this mess is all gone.
So what's the scoop on the dudes like, sideways and with the thing with the big old rounded wool pad? What's the deal with that?
There's a technique that's developed with rotary, and it's because of the big diameter pads. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about...
Like a 12-inch, what are they, 10-inch?
Well, 10-inch goes back 25 years, but
yep.
That actually shrunk to the norm. The normal diameter, especially in North and South America, is 8-inch.
Okay.
So if we took an 8-inch pad, which would be out to here...
And they're rounded slightly?
They're disc-shaped.
Yeah. So it sits in that little cup, right? So there's the cup and it sits down in there.
Well, what happens is if you put that pad with that big 8-inch diameter, if you put that flat into this paint surface, both edges would try and grab, and it would push you around the car, just like you experienced there.
Even with that little 5-inch, I was trying to do it out here, and it was pulling me.
So imagine a bigger diameter would pull you even more.
Yeah.
So the technique that's developed out of necessity, so somebody's trying to learn how to make this work so it doesn't push you around the car. They tilt the pad. And what happens is now you've neutered this edge. It doesn't make contact with the paint. So when you tilt the pad like that, this is not making contact. The only footprint is that big.
Right.
So that reduction in surface area allows the user to control the buffer and be smooth. So I can do this. I can do this all day. I'm not being pulled in any direction.
Right.
So this is a technique that's developed for the purpose of user experience.
So then, in order to compensate for the fact that less pad is touching, they speed it up.
They speed up RPM, which then means they speed up their arm speed, and they also put more pressure down. So they go like this. Have you seen people buff this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what, when anybody thinks about buffing, that's what they think about.
Yeah.
I think about the dude, sweating, he's flying around all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong, it's just different, right?
It's a technique that's developed to make it less fatiguing. You're not fighting the pad this way.
Right.
But let me show you something. First of all, look at this. You see all this dust?
Yeah.
This is this is what we call dry buffing. When you reduce that footprint, now you have the rest of the pad cooling in the air.
Yeah,
and
drying off all
your compound.
And this is some oily stuff too. Imagine you were using some old,
it would be
old 3M stuff or something.
The old,
right.
Dry everywhere. But also look at
You'd have to wear goggles.
I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but that's got a very distinct swirl mark pattern.
So the idea with that system is you get a big old wool pad, right? You turn it up on edge so you can control the machine better. You turn the speed up because you're touching less of the surface in order to still cut the defects.
Yeah.
So you're changing variables, right? You're changing those things, and then how do you get better? Like it's almost unavoidable that, right? The holograms
for a swirl mark.
And so then how would they finish that down then? They would put a foam pad on and come back and do it again?
With that technique, Matt, it doesn't matter what polish or pad you use, you're going to create a hologram.
Right.
With that technique.
Mm-hmm. But you're going to yank out some scratches.
Yeah.
Maybe reduce orange peel a little bit?
No, orange peel has to be sanded out. You won't reduce it with this technique. You won't get orange peel out.
So it's all about speed and comfort.
But the reason that technique exists is because somebody was trying to make the user experience less fatiguing and less of a fight. I don't want to fight the pad. I want to make it easy for me to do the car. So that's where that technique goes.
So
now, is it the best, most effective? I don't personally think so. And like I said earlier, I learned from the Western Europeans. They're the ones who really taught me how to rotary.
So Western European would be flat.
They use small pad, like this is normal for Western Europe. They laugh at us with our 8-inch pads. They're like, why would you do that? And even in South America, they're 9 and 10-inch diameter. Flat, small pad, flat pad, low RPM, and slow arm speed. It's a lot more control of the pad. And it also happens to be less fatiguing.
But if I'm going to do that, I'd rather have a DA.
Yeah, if you have the.
If I'm going to do everything, right? If I'm going to do everything that I'm doing with a DA with a rotary, and why won't I just use a darn DA? Yeah. And I can't screw it up.
Yeah.
I don't have to have hundreds of hours under the machine. I just stick it on there and go.
Well, remember the rotary techniques were developed at a time when
a DA didn't exist, right?
The DA capabilities of today were not there then.
Right. And so now, if I'm a master of, so you're a master of a rotary. At times, it may make sense to grab the rotary. But if you're not, why become one?
You can do everyday polishing on any car with a DA. You don't have to have a rotary. Those that do want and need it, we have that system available.
That's fascinating. All right. So I'm going to have one to hang on my wall then. And probably never get it out. Plus, I'm working on my cars, which are new cars. And the worst I'm going to have is some sanding marks and some things left over from the the high-end factory jerking around with it.
Yeah.
A Porsche or who knows what I get in the future. But generally, I'm not dealing with this kind of mess.
And those defects, if you know how to use the DA, you can get them out very effectively and efficiently. You don't need a rotary.
All righty, that's our rotary discussion. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the floor.